Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of the Magic Weaning podcast. My name is Gabi, and my intention with this episode is to bring awareness and clarity to the weaning of breastfeeding process because this is what I'm here to do.
You've created a miracle called life, breastfeeding or pumping every day and night. And there's gonna be a gentle weaning way. It's time to listen to Magic Weaning. Welcome to Magic Weaning. You ready for Magic Weaning with Gabriela Ungurelu.
Today, in this episode, I want to talk to you about how the magic weaning process came to life. It's a personal, beautiful story. I could say that it's a personal, beautiful success story because it also brought me into the coaching world. I'm a life coach, but this was my first line of coaching because 6 years ago, when my son was almost 2 years old, I was a lactation consultant and I was a breastfeeding mama. And at the same time, I felt that this journey is kind of over for me. Like I had enough, like I just felt, when you just feel and you know that that's the truth, even though you don't really have reasons for it. Because as a lactation consultant, the thing that you talk about most is how important the breastfeeding is, how important is to have the child close to you, how important is this nourishment that you provide for the child in the first year or years of their life. And so I just kind of woke up one day and felt that I'm kind of done with this. And the second thought that I had was guilt. I was like, how can I be done? I can still breastfeed. So what's wrong with me? And it was really nothing wrong with me, just that I did not know how to go about this. I went back to the materials that I had from the training I've been through to become a lactation consultant, and I realized that there's not very much information on this matter over there. And during that time, I was preparing to become IBCLC consultant. And in that book, I read something that really helped me realize that I might be right feeling that I'm done. Like I might have the right to feel like I'm done breastfeeding. And that happened because of this paragraph in that book that said, "Dear consultants, please have into consideration that before and regardless of all this information that you're going to find out in this book, weaning breastfeeding should last for as long as it's important for the mother and the child at the same time, because no procedure should ever replace thinking." And so this kind of brought me back with my feet on the ground, and I was like, okay, I have the right to want this to be over. And this is how the magic weaning process started and came to life. Even though I had no idea that this was the name for it, even though I had no idea I was gonna make such a big impact doing this going forward, basically what I did was putting together some informations, because even in this book that prepared you for the highest accreditation of lactation consultant like on the planet, there were not direct guidelines on how to go through it. There were a lot of informations about how the history of breastfeeding, how breastfeeding is understood and done in different civilizations and in different religions and in different times, how important it is, how you translate and transmute your emotions through milk into the child's body. And I did not have a clear picture on how to do it. But what helped me a little bit was that they also say that some mammals of some species have this particularity that the female initiates the weaning of breastfeeding for the offsprings. And I was like, okay, so I'm not entirely wrong feeling the way I feel. And so if you haven't heard about the magic weaning, don't worry, it's fine because the process I came up with, it's very unique. And so if this is your first time, just stay tuned. Follow my pages on Facebook, on Instagram, follow my website, and you will be introduced in the things that I'm doing. You will see the testimonials that people that have worked with me, what the people that have worked with me are saying in the testimonials part of the page and of the website and stuff like that. So don't worry, I'm gonna let you in all the details moving forward. So basically, this is how this process came to life. Out of my own need of stopping breastfeeding my son in a way that is gentle, that is respectful, that is with awareness and responsibility, because I liked to be honest with my child since he came into this world, and I wanted to keep things like that moving forward. So I will go in more detail in the second part. Please stay tuned.
I was definitely looking for a method that would embrace my son and also myself, because breastfeeding has been such an amazing experience for both of us, and I just couldn't find a method that I considered would end this process in a freeing way for both me and my son. So I ended up finding her Facebook page, and I decided to work with her because I deal better with one-on-one direction. And once she started telling me about the homeworks, about how the gentle weaning is actually about the mother and not so much about the child, it really intrigued me, as I have never heard everything she was telling me about. And I started writing down all the fears, the fear that my son will not sleep anymore, that my son will not eat properly, that what happens if he gets sick, how will he manage to get better without breastfeeding. So I realized that I had all these fears, and it took some time. I think the whole process took about 3 months until I was able to accept my fears and get over my fears. And guess what? One day, my son, who before working with Gabriella would literally pull me, and he would scream, and he would make a scene because he wanted, to be breastfed, just stopped asking for me.
Thank you for coming back. We are talking about how the magic weaning process came to life, and I hope it already triggered curiosity in you and inspired you to consider this perspective. So, as I was saying, and I like to proudly say that my first very first client when it comes to Magic Weaning, because again, being a lactation consultant and a mother and feeling the need to stop breastfeeding my child, even though I knew that it is important and it matters a lot. Well, I put together some things that I had from my life coach toolkit, because I understood while getting into the life coaching world that we create our reality and that our thoughts are what we are gonna live and experience. So I put together the Magic Weaning process for myself. I had no idea it was gonna get this big. I had no idea I was gonna make a podcast about it. I had no idea I was gonna buy a ticket to go to LA with the Magic Weaning book and just talk about the process that I came up with six years ago. So I had no idea that all of this was gonna come to life, but because my entire focus was on how to stop weaning breastfeeding my child without any trauma for him or for me, without any regrets, and without lying or cold turkey or any other methods that were out there up until that moment. So basically, what's going on is that I started to look at my emotions. I started to deal with my fears, okay? Because when you think weaning breastfeeding, it's like you almost immediately go in fight or flight mode because, well, nobody actually knows what to do about it. And my particular background at the moment was quite specific in the sense that I was going through a divorce, and that was not overnight. Like, I saw it coming, and it was a very difficult time for me, being basically a mother for months when it all started, and then having to stop breastfeeding my son, not knowing what the future will hold, but starting to get perspectives of it. It was different. And I was in this lactation consultants world, and everybody knew what was going on with me. And I could not talk to anybody about the weaning breastfeeding because, being one of them, they would not try to convince me to continue breastfeeding because they knew what I was going through, and they knew that the things I was going through were passing through the milk to the child. And so stopping was not actually a very bad idea. But everybody treated me like a grenade without the safety, because nobody knew how to comfort me. Nobody knew what to tell me. Nobody knew how to encourage me or support me through this process. And this is how I realized that actually nobody knows how to do this. And yes, my circumstances were particular in that point in time, but they were not really very different from what's going on with most mothers when it comes to the weaning breastfeeding. And I was to find out this after years of working with mothers, because up until now, when I'm recording this podcast, this first episode, it's been 6 years that I'm doing this, and it has been over 2,000 mothers that I worked with. So I can definitely say that even though my circumstances were a little bit atypical, when it came to my own weaning of breastfeeding, the emotions, the emotional background of this point in a mother's life is not really different for mothers in general. And I say this with high achieving mothers, with high achieving women that become mothers. The more you are a high achiever before becoming a mother, the harder it's gonna hit you when you become a mother. And being a high achiever, you want to do things at the best of your ability. So when it comes to weaning breastfeeding, you basically find yourself in a black hole because there's no information out there, and not because somebody doesn't want to give it to you, but because being a lactation consultant and being able to support the mother through the weaning breastfeeding process are two very different, distinct things. Because I've been on each side of the matter, okay? The weaning breastfeeding process, it's a very emotional process. And a lactation consultant doesn't have the training to get you through it. So that's why there's not much information out there, and everybody just talks about it like, well, get some sleep, find your way, this will eventually end. And so Magic Weaning, it's a process that came up, as I said, by me being my very first client. And basically what happened was that I stopped weaning breastfeeding my son overnight without him crying, bitching about it, or making a scene about it. And this happened on a Wednesday, and I remember specifically that on the very same weekend, I was going to meet in the capital city of Romania, the country I'm from, with a group of mothers for a brunch, for a raw vegan brunch. And I was like, okay, everybody's gonna be breastfeeding there, because I knew all the mothers. They were like breastfeeding toddlers, they were tandem breastfeeding. So every child there was gonna hang on a boob. And I just stopped breastfeeding my son, and I thought, what am I gonna do? Because I was afraid that my son, seeing all the kids hanging on a boob, he will want to latch back on. And in that moment, I was like going through a divorce and going through all of that came along with it. And I was also very lonely and alone all the time since I gave birth, since I came back from the hospital. I basically spent all of my time with my son and nobody else around. And I was so desperate to have adult interaction that the fear of spending the weekend alone again was greater than the fear that my son will ask me for the boob, seeing all the kids hanging on a boob at the branch. So I was like, okay, I'm doing this. And I just left. And of course, everybody was hanging on a boob, just like I said, just like I knew it would happen. My son was playing along with kids, but not that much, because everybody was like in their mother's arms. And he was playing alone for the most part. I was having beer with the dads because I was no longer breastfeeding, so I could have a beer. And it was in that moment when everybody started to ask me, how did you do it? Again, everybody knowing what my emotional background and what I was going through in life at that time. And they were like, if you made it with everybody, with everything that's going on around you, and with your child, because my child was the wildest child in the group, and he still is, because I really wished for a wild child. I really wished for a wild spirit, and I never shamed him, and I never asked him to stay put, to not get dirty or stuff like that. Like, I would just jump in water every time it rained. I was just doing that alongside with him. So he was a wild child, and he still is. And so that's how the Magic Weaning started, because they knew I was a lactation consultant. This gave me leverage, even though, as I mentioned it's not a requirement to be a weaning breastfeeding coach, because they're two different things. But it gave me leverage because people knew that I was in the business. People knew what I was going through, and also people knew my child, a very opinionated child. So this is how I started with that group of mothers. They started to ask, what did you do? Just tell us some things, because like, this is amazing. And this is how all started. This is how the Magic Weaning started. And it was word of mouth up until now. For 6 years, only word of mouth. Because mothers, and from that moment on, I stopped doing the job of a lactation consultant. I only did the job of a weaning breastfeeding coach. I just worked as a lactation consultant for my sister-in-law when I remarried, and for, I don't know, 2-3 people, like in 6 years. So this is pretty much how the Magic Weaning process came to life. And I'll see you for my final talk in a few moments. Please stay tuned.
I was so amazed that everything that Gabriella taught me, it worked out for me, because like I said, people advised me to do all sorts of things, to put ketchup or to just tie my breast so my son couldn't get to them anymore. But to me, it was traumatizing for me and, of course, for him. So I could not resonate with these methods. And I also didn't have the support where I could not sleep with him. My son slept with me. He still does. He's 4 years old. And I breastfed him until he was close to 3 years old. So he always slept with me. I didn't have a grandma. I didn't have a nanny. My husband, he worked a lot. And I just couldn't use this getaway in order to make him not be as attached to me when it comes to our routines. And so Gabriella really gave me the path to freedom and happiness while gentle weaning my son. And this is the reason why I continued to work with her, and I enrolled in her grown-up program, where I cannot thank her enough and thank myself enough for making this awesome decision, because in the end, it's all about us. It's all about what we decide to do with our fears, how we decide to move on when it comes to reaching certain decisions and getting to certain points in our lives. And of course, this was a milestone. Gentle weaning my son was a milestone. And looking back close to, it's over a year now, but it's such a wonderful experience. And there was no trauma for myself or for my son. So I do encourage every mom to work with Gabriella, because it really, really works. Even though it feels a little bit different, even for myself, I just didn't know if it was going to work out. But I said, you know what, I'm gonna give it a try, because it really feels gentle. It really, really feels soft and safe. Once again, I do want to thank Gabriella for all her support, for all her help, and she's a godsend for all the moms and all the children out there. Thank you, Gabriella.
Hi, and welcome back. And also thank you for staying with me until the end of this episode. Let me know your ahas and wows and the things that you resonated with in this episode. Also share this with your friends, tag me, and let me know what do you feel about it? What would you like to know more in these episodes, or to find out more in these episodes? And you can find me with Gabriela Ungurelu in Facebook and Instagram, and also on gabrielaungurelu.com. You will find the link to my website in the description of the episode, and over there you will see that there's the Romanian and the English version of the website, and you'll find links to every social media platform I'm at, to my free Winning Breastfeeding group, where I do a free Q&A monthly, where you can ask me questions and be live with me and share your story and how can I help you over there. So closing this episode, I just want you to ponder on your breastfeeding journey and maybe face some fears that come up for you when it comes to ending this absolutely beautiful period that you're going through right now. So stay tuned for the next episode. We will talk about why it's so difficult when you think of stop breastfeeding or stop pumping, because it depends on the social background for everybody, how we do this as a mother. So stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you so much for being with me today. It's an honor and a privilege to stand in front of this microphone and send you this story through the Magic Weaning podcast. I'm Gabi. I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Magic Weaning. Tell your friends about your Magic Weaning. Review, tag, subscribe. We hope you had a very good time.